Okay, so here we are discussing vows of the Mahayana. Mahayana vows include the Bodhisattva vows and the Tantric vows. In this context, we're not discussing Tantric vows, we're only focusing on the Bodhisattva vows. We say that once we take the Bodhisattva vows, it is very important to safeguard against opposing conditions or anything that can undermine the vows, and this includes the 18 root downfalls and the 46 secondary misdeeds. So the way to safeguard against those things is described to happen in different ways. One way is to rely on the explanation of your guru. The other way is to rely on your intention. And the third way is to safeguard by relying on understanding or recognizing what these adverse conditions are. And in our case here, it's the third. So by understanding what are those adverse conditions, we're going to safeguard the vows. Thank you. So as we say in our case, we need to recognize all of those adverse conditions that undermine our Bodhisattva vows. And we do this by developing familiarity. So we develop familiarity by enumerating them every day. So there's a list. So there's this and this and this and that. So every day as we go through the list, we need to examine if any of those things have occurred. And as Lamrim Chenmo says, if some of those things occurred during the day, make sure you purify it with strong regret by the same evening, or if something occurs later in the day towards the evening, make sure you purify it by the next day. So, for example, we know from the life of Master Atisha, when he was traveling in Tibet, and he traveled extensively, he would always carry with him a small stupa. And every day, as they were traveling, right, he would go through the number of, all the Bodhisattva vows or the Tantric vows, so the 18 root downfalls, the 46 secondary misdeeds for the Bodhisattva vows, the 14 root downfalls for the Tantric vows, the 8 gross infractions for the Tantric vows, and so forth. So he would run through those lists as he was traveling, and if he thought that he had transgressed any of those, or he was affected by any of those, he would stop, dismount, and offer prostrations to the stupa. So he did that daily. So, for example, at the crown of Buddha Maitreya, there is a stupa, isn't it? And that stupa again represents the virtuous friend, the guru. So, for example, what happens if we can maintain our Bodhisattva vows every day? Then this means that within our mind stream, we have the realized teachings. And if every day, similarly, we recite, let's say, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, then within our mind stream, we have the transmitted teachings. And it is said that it is extremely auspicious, extremely virtuous, if within our minds we have all types of the teachings, because the teachings of the Buddha are categorized in these two groups: the realized teachings and the transmitted teachings. So the thing is that usually, we come into, let's say, a gompa or a monastery, and we look at the statues, and some of them are gold gilded, or, they have precious stones, and we look at them and we are amazed, and we consider them to be very precious, isn't it? However, they are not the Buddha's realized or the Buddha's transmitted teachings. Right? So understand this description. They are there as a representation of the Buddha to allow us to accumulate merit, but they are not the teachings. So this is actually a very important point to keep in mind, because we say that if within our mind stream we have our Bodhisattva vows, we have tantric vows, we have the vows, we have the ethics of abandoning the 10 non-virtuous actions. It means that we have the realized teachings. Sometimes we think that for the realized teachings, we have to search, far away to find them. But if we have these vows within our mind stream, we possess the realized teachings. Now, we're not saying that we possess the realized qualities, but we have the realized teachings. And similarly, every day, when we do the recitations of some mantras, of some sutras, of some prayers, and so forth, also within our mind stream, we have the transmitted teachings of the Buddha. So again, don't think that to find the teachings of the Buddha, you have to travel in some faraway land. So, in terms of the teachings of the Buddha, we have the transmitted teachings. Transmitted teachings refer to the speech of the Buddha. So, anything like mantras, for example, right, or any the sutras that the Buddha has given. This is the transmitted teachings, and the realized teachings are things like the vows that we possess. So, in terms of our presentation, we have completed the presentation of the 18 root downfalls. As we say, it's very important every day to examine if any of those things have occurred. And now we continue with the second part, which is the presentation of the 46 secondary misdeeds. So the word is a misdeed or a fault. And you can see we have a concept of this idea in society in general. Let's say someone is stealing, or someone kills someone, or they tell lies and so forth. We describe this type of activity as a fault, as a misdeed, right? Now, in terms of our Dharma practice, there are certain activities that not only are considered bad or negative within the society, but also within the bounds of our Dharma practice and our commitments, they are misdeeds. So we begin with the enumeration. Number one is not making the three offerings to the three jewels. So the three offerings here, as we say, refer to making three prostrations, and that indicates making offerings or paying homage through our body, our speech, and our mind. So this needs to happen daily. And since we have taken the three jewels are the objects of our refuge, then we make these offerings on a daily basis. The word offering here also indicates the offerings that we find like in the list of the sevenfold practice. And so therefore that extends to other types of offerings. In terms of offerings, we have the external offerings and the internal offerings. For external offerings, for example, anything like flowers or fruit or anything you have bought, right? So it's a very good idea. If you buy some fruit, instead of bringing the fruit straight into your plate or put it straight into the fridge, first offer it to the three jewels. And once you have offered, then you can take it down and consume it, because in this way you accumulate a lot of merit. So the Buddha himself has specified that actually you don't need to spend any money in order to make offerings. You make imagined offerings with the right motivation. So you walk down the street and you have a good look at what's an offer in the shops. There's flowers, there is fruit, there is everything in display. So just look at this abundance and variety of whatever is there and just say, I offer it with a pure motivation to the three jewels. So that is a very extensive offering. The offering really depends on the motivation. It is not qualified by how much money you have spent to buy this particular object. So, for example, with the wrong motivation, even if you offered something that is valued up to $100,000 or what have you, if the motivation is wrong, not only you don't accumulate merit, there is also the danger of accumulating negativity. We come to number two, which is maintaining thoughts of desire. So first of all, let's explain. We're talking about ourselves having great desire, and not being satisfied with whatever we already possess, and that means that we have this appetite for more. If I have one, it's not enough. I want two. If I have two, again, it's not enough. I want to have three. So it is the opposite of having limited desire. So having great desire is the opposite of limited desire. And having great desire comes with this attitude of not being satiated, right? Not being satisfied and contented with what you have. So, for example, it is described that we should have the level of contentment that says, in terms of clothes, as long as I'm not cold, whatever clothes I'm wearing, it's okay. In terms of food, as long as I'm not hungry, that amount or that quality is enough. But we see how rare this really is, isn't it? In terms of ourselves, in terms of society in general, there is a great appetite to consume. For example, when we go out to eat, we never think, oh, just give me the minimum amount of the most simple food, just enough to satisfy my hunger. We just say, give me the best restaurant, the biggest menu, let me order as much as I can from this menu. And we don't even examine, is there any negativity in what I'm doing here or not? It's the complete opposite from the attitude of the bodhisattvas. The bodhisattvas have the attitude that says, no, I don't need anything. I don't need that. I don't need more. I don't need it. Okay, so we are exactly the opposite of this. So we have this great desire, great appetite, and at the same time, we are eyeing the possessions of others and we desire them. So we want to acquire, we want to take what others have. So you can see the great danger of this, great danger in society and great danger, in the world between countries. All the war and all the conflict that takes place is initiated exactly from this attitude. The attitude of having great desire and not being contented. And you say, I want to take that country. I want to take their resources. I just want to take. I need more. So not stopping this great desire, giving in to thoughts of desire, is one of the misdeeds. We come to number 3, which is not showing respect to seniors. So we need to understand here that there are 2 ways in which we can define seniority. One is in terms of age. So someone who is older than you is a senior. But also we can define it in terms of qualities, seniority in terms of quality. And here the second one applies. So when you're dealing with a person who is senior to you in terms of their bodhisattva training, that person deserves to be respected. So if you do not show your respect, this misdeed occurs. And seniority here doesn't have to be counted in years and years. So let's say someone started their bodhisattva training today, and we have someone who started the bodhisattva training yesterday. So although there's only 1 day of difference between them, the one who started the bodhisattva training yesterday is considered to be a senior in terms of their training. And therefore the younger one or the newer one should show respect to the senior. In society, we see that respect is given to seniors in terms of, members of the society that are older than ourselves, which is a very good attitude. But here in the Dharma practice, we applied not just to age, but specifically to training, general training, those who have more training than ourselves. And that can refer, that is applicable in the case of the Bodhisattva vows, and also it is applicable in the case of obtaining vows of individual liberation. So, usually we record the day when we obtain these vows, because this is important to keep the line of seniority. And we see that even at the time of the Buddha himself showed the aspect of venerating those, how important it is to venerate those with seniority in society. So, talking about seniority and showing respect to seniors, of course, the prime example that comes here in society is our parents. We should show great respect to our parents. But we see that these days the trend in society is that if we like that person, then we show respect towards them. If for whatever reason we don't like the person, we just look at them and we criticize and we say, why should I show respect to this person, even though they are an elder? They have this fault and that fault. So you keep looking or identifying faults, not looking at your own faults, but looking at identifying faults in others as an excuse for not showing respect to them. So that happens quite often. So we should be careful. We should be sensitive to these things. We come to number 4, not answering questions. So this refers to the case of someone who asks questions to a bodhisattva. So they have an honest, sincere question. It could be a dharma question, such as, for example, how does one practice when one is a bodhisattva? How do you define the 3 jewels? How do you do, what is this or that in terms of dharma? Or it could be another general question. And the person who asks the question really wants to know, and also they like the bodhisattva, so they are approaching in a very eager manner, very polite, eager, friendly manner. But then the bodhisattva, out of laziness or out of anger, they do not give an appropriate answer or a relative answer. Geshe was saying this was something that sometimes would happen in Tibet with some famous teachers. The students would ask questions, but the teacher would think, now, if I'm going to answer all these questions, they will get to know as much Dharma as I know, right? So I won't be kind of like superior to them. So out of a sense of pride, they would not give specific, they would not give the proper answers to these questions. It happens. Yeah. So, of course, we gave the example in terms of Dharma questions, but it happens in society as well. Someone might ask you a question and you decide you don't want to give an answer because you want to keep the information to yourself, right? But if we know from our experience, if we are the one who is asking the question, we're very pleased when the person is willing to share information, to give us that knowledge. Then, of course, sometimes we might ask something that should be kept a secret, right? Then that's a different case. Okay, so number 5 is not accepting invitations. So imagine that someone invites a bodhisattva for a dinner to offer them food or clothes and so forth. And then the bodhisattva, out of pride, out of laziness, out of anger, they decline the invitation. So if that happens, it is a misdeed from the side of the bodhisattva. Really, if you want to work for the benefit of others, when they issue an invitation and you are capable of attending, then you should accept the invitation and attend the event. Again, there are provisions to this because sometimes it might not be practical to attend. So, for example, the location where the dinner is held is very far away, or you are not feeling very well, you are sick, or the place in which the event will take place might be very noisy, disturbing, and so forth. So there are cases, in these cases you can refuse the invitation. Number 6, not accepting gold and so forth. Okay, so we have, let's say, a benefactor who wants to make an offering to a bodhisattva, and they want to offer some precious substance, gold and silver and things like that. Now, if that bodhisattva also happens to be a gelong, a fully ordained monk, there is provision that the fully ordained should not touch gold and silver and other such precious substances. If they directly touch it, directly take it with their hands, a downfall occurs. So if you are a fully ordained monk, then you cannot directly touch and take these precious substances. However, if you're not an ordained bodhisattva, it is said that it will be a misdeed when gold and silver is offered to you not to take it, not to accept it. When you accept it, you do not accept it with the thought, oh, look what I scored. I got gold today. So you shouldn't having these thoughts, but you accept it thinking, I can offer it to the 3 jewels. I can offer it to the poor and the needy. I can use this wealth in the most meaningful way. Actually, when others make offerings to you as a bodhisattva, it is very important to accept it. When you accept it, you open up the door for the other person to accumulate merit. If you refuse to take the offering, it's like you're closing the door, you stop the opportunity for that person to accumulate merit. Now, if we go back and we look at this, the specific of this tradition in places like Thailand or Burma, when the benefactors want to make an offering of, let's say, gold or money to the ordained Sangha, the ordained Sangha would never touch it with their hands. So they have devised this ritual where they have a piece of cloth and the gold or the money is put on the cloth. The cloth is then folded, and then the ordained might receive the offering in this way. However, they would never touch it with their hands. So we actually had a question on our very, very first class on this that was asking whether, let's say, accepting money from that have been obtained in a way that is not 100% ethical, such as, for example, from a butcher, right? Whether accepting a donation from such sources make us also accumulate some negativity. So Geshe was saying this question actually falls in this category that we are discussing here into number 6, and whether or not there is negativity in accepting this 100% depends on your motivation. Number 7 is not giving the Dharma to those who desire it. So it becomes a misdeed if you do not give the Dharma out of jealousy, out of laziness, or out of anger. We had a very similar formulation in the root downfalls. The second root downfall was not giving wealth and not giving Dharma. But there the motivation was out of miserliness. So if you do it, if you withhold giving Dharma out of miserliness, it's a root downfall. If you do not give it out of anger or laziness or jealousy, it's a secondary misdeed. So with this first group of 7, we recognize them to be misdeeds contrary to the perfection of generosity. We continue to number 8. It says rejecting those of degraded morality. In our text, it says rejecting those who have committed the 5 heinous crimes, or those who have confused the ethics in terms of having received a root downfall. And out of using this as the reason, or using this as an excuse, out of anger, out of laziness, or out of a vindictive state of mind, you completely ignore and reject these beings. So as a bodhisattva, you do not make distinctions like this. As a bodhisattva, your purpose is to support and work for the benefit of others. You do not reject anyone saying, oh, this one has good morality, this one is not a good person, and so forth. So number 9 is the misstate is not training for the sake of others' faith. So, for the sake of others' faith, mean not doing things that would protect others' mind. So, let's give you an example. At the time of the Buddha, the ordained monks used to go out every day with the begging bowls for alms. And during the rainy season, that was the time where the general population was cultivating the fields. And when the monks would go out every day, they would have to walk across the fields. So non-Buddhists criticized the Buddhist monks, saying, look at them, every day they come trampling all over our fields. So when the Buddha saw that there was criticism towards the monks because of that, in order to pacify the minds of non-Buddhists in the community, he advised the monks not to go out during the rainy season, but instead to stay inside the monastery. And this is where the tradition of the rainy time retreat, the summer retreat, this is where the tradition comes from. So, for example, for someone who is a fully ordained monk, it is said that they should not drink alcohol. They should not have relationships with the women. They should not pull out grass from the ground, because when you pull out grass from the ground, you're actually harming insects and sentient beings. They should not touch fire. And the reason for that is because the physical basis, the body of such a being, is the basis for receiving the Gelong vows that are very precious. And therefore, you do not want to burn the body in any way. So these types of training were given to protect the minds of others. Because when we protect the mind of people in the society, we give them an opportunity for their faith to increase. If we do things that upset them, then they would just criticize more and more. It's extremely short here. It's just one line, but there are great texts dedicated to the, text on the what's it called? It's called The Main Path to Enlightenment, the Conduct of the Bodhisattvas, or the Ethics of the Bodhisattvas. A very extensive presentation on those issues. Okay. We come to number 10, where it says, doing little for the sake of others. So how this is explained in our commentary, it says, according to the Vinaya, there are strict strict rules. Actually, Buddha Shakyamuni has given 13 specific rules for the ordained. So, for example, it specifies the material out of which the begging bowl is made. So it says that the material of the begging bowl should be made out of very plain black metal, not gold, not silver, not any precious metal. And the reason why it specifies that it should be some very basic, simple metal is so that the monks would not generate attachment towards a precious begging bowl. Similarly, in terms of the robes have to be made out of pieces of cloth. So the robes are not one, let's say, uncut long piece of cloth. Because if it was one uncut long piece of cloth, it might tempt someone to resell that cloth, right? But if the cloth is, if the robe is made out of small pieces and that are all patched up, This is not something you could easily sell. No one would buy pieces and patches of cloth. Um, uh, other um, and again, it's so that there will be no attachment for the robes or the material of the robes. Also, there is there are clauses that specify that you cannot just accumulate more and more than the absolutely minimum that you need. So, for example, a baking bowl, one baking bowl is enough per monk. You should not have two begging bowls. What are you going to do with a second begging bowl? Right? You should not accept, you should not have a second begging bowl. In terms of your sets of robes, you only have the absolutely minimum of pieces of clothes. You don't need seconds and thirds and so forth. It also applies to the amount of food that you keep per day. You only take as much as you can eat on this day. So these are the rules that are described in the Vinaya. However, if you are a bodhisattva, you are working for the benefit of others. So even if you keep 1,000 begging bowls, if people keep offering you begging bowls, you take each one of them and you can keep 1,000 begging bowls because it is for the benefit of others. Number 11, when you have compassion, there is no non virtue in the first 7 non virtues. Okay, so this refers to the fact that a bodhisattva is always working for the benefit of others. And what is very special with bodhisattvas is that all of their activities are fueled or motivated by bodhicitta. And therefore, bodhisattvas who have generated bodhicitta, they have permission to engage in the first 7 non-virtuous activities. So, for example, the question is asked, can a bodhisattva kill? Is it permissible for the bodhisattva to kill? And the answer to that is yes. They are permitted to engage in killing if it is for the sake of benefiting and protecting other sentient beings. They are not permitted to engage in killing out of motivated by some affliction and so forth. We have a precedent of that in the story of a bodhisattva king who knew that there were 10 people coming in to actually kill a lot of citizens. And this bodhisattva king, motivated by compassion, interfered and killed those 10 assassins. Let's call them assassins. So if the activity was not carried out with compassion, the maturational result of killing 10 people would be to take a rebirth in the hells for an incalculable period of time. However, because it was taken out of compassion, it was considered to be the proper act of a bodhisattva. Actually, when the occasion necessitates this, for the bodhisattva not to carry out these 7 non-virtuous activities would be a misdeed. It's not that the bodhisattvas delight in killing or stealing or anything like this. However, when there is need for the benefit of others, in order to help and support others out of compassion, they have to act in this way. Number 12, adopting wrong livelihood. Our text here gives us a list of 5 types of wrong livelihood for the ordained. The first one is hypocrisy. So, for example, you're a group of monks and you know that a big sponsor is coming, and you decide to clean up the place and, look very, you appear to be in your best behavior. Hypocrisy. Second one is flattery. So using very sweet words, again, with the aim of taking something, receiving something from a benefactor. The third one is asking indirectly or soliciting. So you start saying, oh, last year you gave me such and it was greatly beneficial. It will be so good to receive it again. Okay, so asking indirectly. The third one, the fourth one is extortion through threat. So, like bullying or blackmailing, right? So you ask and you say, "Can you give me this?" And the other person says, "No, this is not. I have no intention of giving this to you. This, I intend to give to somebody else." And then you pressurize by other means to take it. And the fifth one is calculated generosity. Calculated generosity is when you make a very small present, like a token of a present, with the expectation of receiving a much bigger gift. Okay, so these are the 5 types of wrong livelihood. And if we do not apply the antidote, then the misdeed occurs. The reason is because all of them are, they represent attitudes of being under the influence of the 8 worldly dharmas. Number 13, being overexcited, roaring with laughter, and so forth. So, for those things to happen to you or to cause others, try to make others become overexcited or roar with laughter, and so forth. You are acting out of attachment, and it is an indication that your mind is not pacifying. And not only your own mind is not pacified, but you're trying to cause this type of disturbance to others as well. Okay, then number 14, thinking only of remaining in cyclic existence, thinking that bodhisattvas should not be afraid of afflictions and can remain in cyclic existence and so forth. We need to make a differentiation here that bodhisattvas might remain for 3 countless great eons within cyclic existence, but during that time, they do not take rebirth due to the power of karma and afflictions. Rather, it's by choice that they want to remain in cyclic existence out of the power of the compassion and the prayers they make. So there is that thing about whether bodhisattvas like liberation or would like liberation. And the thing is that the bodhisattvas are not interested to merely obtain liberation from samsara. Bodhisattvas are aiming at obtaining the state of Buddhahood. So you could say bodhisattvas do not like liberation. We come to number 15, not rejecting disrepute. Okay, so here not rejecting the lack of respectability and not rejecting accusations. All right. So let's say you're a bodhisattva and someone accuses you and says, "Oh, this person is a thief." You're not a thief. And some people think that because you're a bodhisattva, you should have this attitude that says, "Oh, they call me a thief. I know I'm not a thief. I should just stay quiet and not say anything." This is not true. It is actually a misdeed. With truth on your side and in a civilized way, you should respond to these false accusations, because it's very important for the bodhisattva to maintain their respectability and the good reputation. Number 16, not correcting others despite their clashes, meaning despite their afflictions. Right. So you see that others are misbehaving due to their afflictions, and you can also perceive that if you were to employ wrathful means, you could stop them in their track. So not doing this, not stopping them by using wrathful means, is a mistake. We know that in terms of the various activities that we can employ, we have activities of pacification or peaceful activities, activities of increase and so forth, but we also have wrathful activities. And sometimes when you see that, let's say, humans or non-humans who are misbehaving could be corrected if you used wrathful speech or wrathful actions, then it is a mistake not to employ these means. So always the bodhisattva acts out of compassion, never under the influence of the 3 poisons. And they're always thinking what is the best way to benefit this other sentient being? What is the best way to protect them? If a peaceful method is the best, I will use the peaceful method. If a wrathful method is required here, I will use the wrathful one. This group of 9 are 9 misdeeds contrary to the perfection of ethical discipline. We'll continue with number 17, responding to verbal abuse with verbal abuse and so forth. There are 4 types of activity, so it says and so forth. The first one is scolding, this verbal abuse. The second one is showing anger. The third one is hitting, so physically hitting. And the third one is hitting, and the fourth one is openly criticizing. So, as a bodhisattva, if someone abuses you or shows anger or hits you or openly criticizes you, it is not correct to respond in a similar way. Not only for the bodhisattva, but in society. I mean, of course, there are people who abuse us, there are people who might be physically aggressive, who might openly criticize, but if we respond in kind, this is not considered to be proper behavior in society. Number 18, neglecting those who are angry. So it could be the case that someone thinks, oh, this bodhisattva has not acted properly towards me, and I'm angry towards this bodhisattva. Or they might even have the doubt, thinking, oh, I wonder if this bodhisattva dislikes me or doesn't act properly towards me. If you are the bodhisattva and you know that this is what the other person is thinking, if out of pride or out of laziness you do not try to clarify the situation and pacify the anger of the other person, then this is a misdeed. So actually this is something that often happens in society. For example, you might meet some people who are very pleasant and polite to you. They're always smiling and so forth. However, you don't know what they're thinking. In their mind, they could be having very bad thoughts about you, right? And then there are other people who have very good intentions towards you. However, it's not in their character to always be smiling or always showing a nice face, always talking pleasantly and so forth. And you look at them and you think, oh, they're so severe. They are so angry. They always look at me with those, in this angry expression. But in their mind, they could have, they have very good intention towards you. Because we don't know the mind of other people, we should not just go by what is the external expression, like, the physical and the verbal. We should not just rely on that. Ideally, we should have people who, first of all, their intention or their mind is totally pure, and also their external behavior, as expressed by their physical and verbal activities, is friendly and pleasant and so forth. But if we cannot get this perfect combination, the most important thing is that we have the really good intention internally, and then externally, even if someone appears gloomy or what we call serious, it's okay. We don't have to be smiling all the time. Okay, we come to number 19, not accepting others' apologies. So okay, so yeah, not accepting others' apologies. So someone else has acted in a bad way towards the bodhisattva, and they try, there is some attempt for reconciliation, there is some attempt, for some discussion to, to patch things up and so forth. And then you as the bodhisattva is not making the effort to clear out the bad whatever atmosphere and not accepting their apology. Okay, Previously in the downfalls, the third one is not accepting a confession. So here it's not a confession. It's just it's different because it's not a confession. It's an attempt for a reconciliation, an attempt to just clear out what happened. Number 20, maintaining angry thoughts. So an angry thought arises, and you don't see it as a fault to hold on into that anger. And because you don't see it as a fault, you actually follow angry thoughts. You cultivate, you stay with the anger. So not taking measures to stop this is maintaining angry thoughts. Okay, so the last four we covered are form states contrary to the perfection of patience. We start with the next group. Number 21, eager for gain and honors, gathering a following. So very clearly here it describes the motivation. You want to accumulate things. You want to boost up your name. You want to have people serving you and honoring you. And with this intention, you gather disciples. So we will stop here up to number 21. And now that we have introduced those, again, these are things that we should revise every day. If we find out that some or any of those have occurred, it is very important to generate the mind that says, I will not do that thing again. So a sense of restraint. If it has not occurred, it's not enough just to say, oh, good, it didn't happen. But in addition to that, I mean, it's very good it didn't happen, but in addition to that, we should have the very strong intention that says, and tomorrow, again, I will make sure none of these occur. Okay, so it's very good for us to keep the Bodhisattva vows as purely as possible, because these allow us to gather up a vast accumulation of merit. Then we had a question because one of the root downfalls was to abandon the Mahayana and follow false dharma. So there was a question whether Feng Shui falls in the category of false dharma. And Geshe was saying in society, not only in your society, in your country, but also in Tibet, we have the tradition of, or there is the tradition of making many types of calculation. So sometimes there are astrological calculations, or there are some sort of divinations, and they can give you an indication that today is a good day, or this direction is a good direction, or you should do it this way and not the other way. It is not a clear cut, and you cannot say this is false dharma and this is not false dharma. If these calculations are done with the aim of benefiting sentient beings, then we should accept them. And a lot of people rely on them and benefit from those. Geshe was saying a thing that it becomes false dharma if you are following practitioners who reject the existence of the law of cause and effect, who reject the existence of past and future lives. So Geshe was saying, I encourage each one of you individually, whatever is the discipline, the specific question was about Feng Shui, but whatever is the discipline you are interested about, to just investigate whether strictly it falls into the definition of a false dharma. And again, the lines are a bit blurry here. Yeah. So Geshe was saying there's so many forms of divination. There are people who read the palm of your hand. There are people who do divinations through many, many ways, and they can be very accurate. They can give you very accurate instruction. Now, do these people have faith in the Buddha Dharma? Probably not. So, for example, there were even, gods and different worldly deities with great powers, even at the time of the Buddha. But can we wholeheartedly rely to them? Should they be our refuge? they're not really a refuge. They have great powers. They have clairvoyance. They can give you answer to any question, but they're not the proper objects of refuge. If we go 100% refuge to them, we lose our proper refuge. We also had a third question that was asking, should I buy tissues from a tissue paper seller? Okay, so in every country there are specific laws about begging, and in many countries to openly beg is prohibited, and yet we have people in society who are very old, they are impoverished, they do not have other means, and you often see them selling something, very small items. Sometimes are packets of tissue paper, sometimes they are key rings. Usually it's something very small. Okay, so Geshe says if you can afford it, it will be very good to buy from those people, because you're actually benefiting them, because these people are poor people, right? They need financial support, and this is the means they have for this. So if we do it with the right motivation, when you buy whatever you buy for them, never do it with a sense of miserliness, always with a great sense of generosity. And if you do it like this, it becomes a bodhisattva practice. You want to benefit someone who is poor. Yeah. So if you can actually benefit, that'd be wonderful. You are benefiting sentient beings. And on the other hand, we're not insisting that you have to buy every time. You might have decided from the beginning that you do not want to buy. And when they kind of like approach you and say, would you please buy something? You can say, no, thank you. I'm not buying this. So by refusing, again, you're not breaking a vow. You don't have a rude downfall or anything like that.
Mm.
You have all been to Bodh Gaya, and you have all seen, the hordes of beggars. They are not all poor people. Some of them are very well off, so they are fake beggars as well. And actually, some of them even have their own cars and vehicles, and they would park the car and then come out, change the clothes from the ordinary clothes to some really kind of like beggar clothes and come out. Some of them, they would even wear yellow robes of the ordained and come out begging. They're not even true monks. They're not true beggars, right? And then you see them later on in another context. They're well dressed, they have money, and so forth. So not everyone is a beggar. Yeah, but sometimes we meet some genuine cases of people who are destitute. And when you meet a genuine case, sometimes people are crippled and so on and so forth. So it's very good to give with an attitude of generosity. Okay, now another story. Geshe was saying when he was in Bodh Gaya for the Great Color Chakra initiation, there was a situation like this. There was a three-story house, and a Tibetan lady was living there. And this lady, she was generous. Every day she would offer something to the beggars. Now, one day she left her house before, let's say, the beggar came. She gave the day before to a beggar, and then the next day she left her house. She locked her door, and she went out. She needed to go out. And then when she came back home, she said she found a whole line of beggars waiting outside her door, kind of demanding that they receive some offering, some donation. And it was totally overwhelming because you could see that they were very demanding, right? They had great like appetite or desire to receive, and they would not be easily satisfied. Yeah. So all sorts of people in society, we see all sorts of things.